On today's episode of The Front Row, we are at the Lubbock Public Media Studios in the Lubbock Cultural District, and our special guest on the program today is Dori Bosnyak, who is one of my very favorite people to interview on this show because she has the most interesting things happening in our community. She is the lead administrator and director of the Presidential Lecture and Performance Series at Texas Tech University, bringing fabulous and varied activities to the South Plains. And Dori, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, Clint. Thanks for having me, and what a wonderful space.
Yeah, it's great. So for folks who don't know, the Presidential Lecture and Performance Series is one of the great cultural institutions. How long has it been around?
We are continuing our 18th season this fall. So 18 long years. We've had about 85 events, about 5 shows a season. So we've been around a little bit. It's really neat to be involved with a program that's recognized by folks. So a lot of times we'll hear from patrons that they might not even look into what the event is really. They'll just go ahead and get their tickets and they sort of trust the brand at this point. And that's such a nice compliment, and it makes it a little easy.
Absolutely. No, that's great. That's fantastic. And it's so varied. You have a speaker, you have dance troupes, you have musical events, you have locally based events like the Lubbock Lights. It's so good. It's so varied.
And a little bit of theater too. Not as often as I'd like, but my background personally is theater, and I'm always keeping an eye out for some more theater events too. But yes, it's just a little bit of a variety, especially when it comes to the speakers. I mean, truly we've had scientists and authors and artists, and I'm always thinking of maybe bringing someone from athletics, because that'd be really interesting for our audience. So gosh, it's really just a little bit of everything.
Right. Well, we're already to the second event of the current season, so tell us about it.
So we have a concert coming up. Usually in November we have a concert, and this group is called the American Patchwork Quartet. It's a little bit of a mouthful to say, but for short it's APQ. And actually they're a new band, and I so enjoy using our November slot to sort of bring someone who's not necessarily a household name, certainly not in Lubbock, maybe not in Texas, maybe in their own region where they're from, but folks don't really know them here, and we bring them anyways and give them a platform and book them, and it's always a great opportunity for them because the Allen Theater seats almost 1,000 people. Mm-hmm. So it's usually a big venue for the band in November, but I really enjoy helping them get that recognition. And over the years, we've often seen that this November booking goes on and gets more recognized pretty quick after we have them. They'll have a Grammy nomination, maybe even an award. So it's just really neat to use the program, at least some of the program, for that. And so APQ, let me sort of describe them a little bit because they are so unique and special. I really want to dig into who the band members are because I think that helps offer a picture. So in short, the genre is a fusion of jazz, roots, country, and East Asian. I mean, it's a little bit of everything, truly. And so they celebrate the immigrant experience and being a true patchwork, a blend of styles. But so let me just detail who the members are.
Sure.
So we have Clay Ross, who is a vocalist and a guitar player. And what's real fun about him, and truly the reason why I booked them in the first place, Clay Ross was with us here with Ranky Tanky 2 years ago, and Ranky Tanky was one of my personal favorites. They came from Charleston, and they're a jazz fusion band, and so that's also Clay's project, but this is his newer band. And so I just really wanted to sort of keep uplifting his work because he's so good at assembling these different folks and creating a cohesive sound. So if you remember Ranky Tanky, come on out for this one too, because this is sort of in a similar vein. So Clay is amazing. And so the 3 other members, we have Clarence Penn, and if you're really in the know on jazz, and especially jazz drummers, you will recognize Clarence Penn. He's sort of referring to himself as one of the busiest jazz drummers in the world. He studied with Alice Marsalis, and he's an educator, producer, composer, and he's really just hands down fantastic. Then the other gentleman who's also from a jazz background is Moto Fukushima, who's a Grammy-nominated bass player, and he blends Western classical, traditional Japanese, and South American music into unique jazz composition. So if you just take him, he's already a fusion on his own, and now he's adding his sound to the band. And then let me just wrap up the quartet by highlighting Falguni Shah, who is the main vocalist. She's born in India. She refers to it as Bombay, but I think now it's Mumbai. There
Yeah,
was a name
that's
change,
right, that's right,
but she
yeah.
still says she's from Bombay because when she was born, it was still
That's
Bombay.
what it was, right.
But so she blends classical Indian melodies with contemporary Western sounds. And she's an 11th generation Hindustani singer, just so trained and so skilled. And she's been working so hard her whole life to perfect those complicated melodies that you hear in that genre of singing. She has likely the most recognized resume of the four. She worked with Yo-Yo Ma, which is sort of fun, I think, to mention for audience because Yo-Yo Ma was here not too long ago with the symphony. So she was a soloist for his Silk Road project. She worked with Philip Glass, and then Bernie Worrell, who's a founding member from Parliament Funkadelic. And she won a Grammy in 2022 for a children's album that she made. So she's just really all across the map. She lives here now in New York City, and since 2020, she's been part of this new band, APQ. Wow. So I just think by me really describing all the individual members, which I don't typically get into who the individual artists are, I think it really helps give an idea of how eclectic but cohesive the group is.
Well, it's so interesting. And if I can digress for just
sure.
1 second, these bass players are really interesting because you talked about how the bass player here had some classical influence and was doing other things. I have this vivid memory when I was in school of going up to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and hearing all of the Brandenburg concertos by Bach, and the bass player was fabulous. He was so good. And so I struck up a conversation with him and asked him, how you doing, all this kind of thing. And I said, well, what do you do when you're not playing, out playing in Santa Fe? And he said, oh, I'm the bass player for Asleep at the Wheel.
Oh, by the way. Oh my gosh. That's what I'm finding it. You gotta be you have your fingers in all the pots. You just have to kind of be involved everywhere, and
that's right.
And that's how you get recognized and get more and more projects added on. So it's truly incredible. Now, speaking of instruments, I suppose Falu, the main vocalist, she's also a sitar player, and so you'll see that in our picture that she's holding her beautiful instrument. And so I enjoy sort of connecting her back to Anushka Shankar. Hope I'm pronouncing that right, right? Anushka Shankar. She was here with us, I think, in 2012, and so she's a prominent sitar player, and I know that concert did really well with us with PLPS, so I enjoy having another sitar player on stage really 12 years later, which I think just kind of pointing that out kind of also helps the listener sort of picture the program if you're not really familiar with the presidential series. I mean, we really enjoy just covering all the genres, and just we haven't had a star in 12 years, but now here we are, and probably we will again in the next decade. So it's just really nice to pinpoint those connections. And I know APQ played a concert last week with Martha Redbone, who was with us in 2016. I mean, these guys they're all from the same realm.
It's a big community.
It's great.
Right,
There's just support back and forth, and it's I think it's neat for the listener to kind of see those connections too, because probably someone who's listening and might come to this concert might know, oh, I saw Martha Redbone in 2016. What a neat reminder.
Right, exactly. That's great. Well, so when the audience comes, what can they really sort of expect in the concert? What should they be prepared for? So
we should have a 90-minute concert. There's no intermission. I like to point that out because we don't have concessions. I also like to point that out too. The Allen Theater is a strict sort of no concessions policy, and so that's fine. I think it's neat to truly just come for the experience, and you can grab a nice meal and before or after. But it's a 90-minute show. I need to triple check on whether we'll have a lobby meet and greet, but I think we should, which I know our patrons really enjoy, meeting the band after and maybe snagging some merch and taking it home. So I think we should be able to have that. It's been interesting sort of with the pandemic how a lot of bands are opting out of a meet and greet, but I think we're seeing that it's coming back a little bit, so that'll be real neat.
That'd be great. Will they take part academically in the school while they're here?
Yes, and that's been a great question on where to bring them to, because I really enjoy finding a class that's most relevant to the artist. And so because this group is such a fusion, it was sort of interesting to think, well, what's the best connection here? And also with the timing too, this is a Thursday class, if I'm not mistaken. And so there's just always timing and what's best for the band. You don't want to have them get up too early because they have a late evening show. We were able to bring them to Dr. Chris Smith's class, and he's been such a fantastic host for so many of our bands, and he's so knowledgeable on global music and in the entire world, truly. And so he even without research, which I know he does, but even if he didn't prepare for this band at all, he would be able to immediately jump in and make the connection.
Absolutely.
So he's just the best host for us, and he's been a radio show host, I think, for a long time himself. Right. He's great at conversing and leading conversation.
Right. Excellent. Great. So this is the American Patchwork Quartet. Tell us time, date, and place.
November 14th, 7 p.m. We will be in the Student Union building on campus, which the address for that is 1502 Akron Avenue. Look for the Allen Theater. It like I mentioned, it truly has 936 seats. So hopefully if you don't exactly know where to go, you'll be able to sort of follow a bit of a crowd. But so it's 1502 Akron, like I mentioned. And you can get tickets by calling Select a Seat. Their phone number is 806-770-2000. Or you can find their website. That's presidentialseries.ttu.edu. And our tickets are $20. I enjoy being able to offer them at a pretty affordable rate. I think they're quite accessible. They're free for students, which is such a fun element. And I really always hope that students kind of recognize that more. Come on out, because it's free for you.
Right, exactly. Sounds great. Well, Dori, as always, thank you so much for being our guest on the show today. Dori Bosnyak is the lead administrator and director of the Presidential Lecture and Performance Series at Texas Tech University. Dori, thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.